Commander Vex floated in a command chair, watching the blue and green planet spin slowly below his ship. Earth looked so ordinary from space, just another water world in the endless galaxy. He had been studying humans for 3 months now, and every day they surprised him with how simple they were. The humans had primitive rockets that barely reached their own moon. Their computers were huge metal boxes that could only do basic math. Their weapons were chemical explosives and simple nuclear bombs that could not even destroy a small asteroid. Vex had seen countless species like this before. They always stayed primitive forever, or they suddenly became gods overnight. There was never anything in between. His communication officer turned toward him with confusion on her face. "Sir, the humans are sending another message. They want to decline our gift of antimatter engines again." Vex laughed and shook his head. Every species did this at first. Pride made them think they could figure out advanced technology on their own. Tell them the offer remains open. They will change their minds when they realize how impossible it is to advance without help. On Earth, Dr. Emma Reed stood in a laboratory buried deep underground in what humans called Hidden Valley. The facility looked ordinary from outside, just another research center in the mountains. But Hidden Valley was humanity's biggest secret. For 300 years, ever since first contact with aliens, the best human minds had worked here in complete secrecy. Emma held a small device in her hands. It looked like a simple metal cube, but inside it contained technology that would make the Galactic Dominion panic. The cube was reverse engineered from alien antimatter engines, but it worked completely differently. Where alien technology used brute force, human technology used precision. Where aliens wasted energy, humans made every particle count. "Have you finished the analysis on their latest gift?" Emma asked her assistant, Dr. James Liu. James nodded and pulled up holographic displays that showed alien gravitational manipulators broken down to their basic parts. Same pattern as always. Their technology is powerful but wasteful. They never learn to make things efficient. It is like they jump from stone tools directly to magic without learning engineering. Emma smiled. This was exactly what made humans different. When the Dominion first contacted Earth, they expected humans to either stay primitive forever or accept transcendence into energy beings. They never imagined a third choice. Humans had chosen to walk the slow path, learning every step, understanding every principle, making everything better. The secret project had started small. A few scientists studying alien gifts in hidden laboratories. But as decades passed, it grew into something much larger. Thousands of researchers worked in facilities across Earth, all connected by quantum communication networks that aliens could not detect. They studied every piece of alien technology, not to copy it, but to understand why it worked and how to make it work better. Dr. Tom Adams walked into the laboratory carrying a data pad with the latest reports. The testing is complete on Project Mirror Shield. Our version uses 90% less energy than alien force fields and can stop weapons the aliens cannot even detect. Emma felt pride warm her chest. Mirror Shield was just one of hundreds of secret projects. Humans had developed new types of engines that moved ships by folding space instead of pushing through it. They had created computers that used quantum effects to think faster than any artificial intelligence. They had built weapons that could edit matter itself, making things simply stop existing. But the most important part was that everything stayed human. Other species either remained limited by biology or gave up their bodies entirely to become pure energy. Humans found a different way. They enhanced their minds and bodies but kept their humanity. They built incredible technology but made sure humans could still control it. Above ground, Commander Vex received another routine report from his scouts. The humans were building more of their simple chemical rockets and launching them toward their outer planets. It all looked so harmless and primitive. The Dominion had classified Earth as Level 2 civilization, barely above Stone Age tribes. What Vex did not know was that those rockets carried human colonists to secret bases on Mars, Jupiter's moons, and the asteroid belt. Each base was equipped with technology that could destroy his entire fleet. But the humans were patient. They had learned that the galaxy was full of dangers, and they needed to be ready before revealing their true capabilities. The tests came sooner than expected. Pirates attacked a human colony on New Geneva, a small settlement on the edge of human space. The pirate captain, Cor the Bloody, expected easy victory. His intelligence report said humans had only primitive weapons and chemical rockets. New Geneva would fall in minutes, and his crew could take whatever they wanted. Cor brought 12 warships against what appeared to be a defenseless farming community. His ships had particle beam weapons and quantum torpedoes. The humans seemed to have nothing but a few orbital platforms that looked like simple communication satellites. The battle began at dawn, local time. Cor's ships moved into attack formation and prepared to demand surrender. But before he could even send a message, something impossible happened. The human satellites suddenly moved with impossible speed and precision. They were not satellites at all, but weapons platforms that had been hiding in plain sight. Beams of coherent energy struck Cor's ships with surgical accuracy, cutting through their shields like paper. But that was not the strangest part. The human weapons did not just damage the pirate ships. They seemed to edit parts of them out of existence. Hull plating simply vanished. Weapon systems stopped working not because they were broken, but because key components had been removed from reality itself. Cor's flagship lost engine power when its fusion reactors simply disappeared. Not exploded, not damaged, just gone as if it had never existed. His weapons officer reported that their particle cannons were firing empty space instead of energy beams. What kind of weapons are these? Cor screamed at his crew, but nobody had answers. This technology was beyond anything in Dominion records. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. All 12 pirate ships were disabled without being destroyed. Their crews were alive but helpless, floating in space in vessels that no longer functioned. Then human ships appeared from nowhere, moving without any visible engines, surrounding the disabled pirates. The human ships were beautiful and terrifying. They looked like they were made of flowing metal and energy, constantly shifting shape as they moved. They had no obvious weapons ports, but the pirates had already experienced what human weapons could do. A human voice spoke over open communication channels. "Pirate vessels, you are surrounded. Prepare to be boarded for processing." Cor tried to activate his ship's self-destruct system, but found that the key components had been removed from reality. He could not even send a distress signal because his communication array had been selectively edited out of existence. Human boarding parties arrived in small craft that moved through space like living things. The humans who emerged wore armor that seemed to be alive, adapting and changing as needed. They moved with inhuman speed and precision, but they were still recognizably human underneath their enhancements. Within an hour, all pirates were captured and their ships were being towed away by human vessels. But the most frightening part was the silence. Usually when pirates attacked colonies, at least some escaped to spread word of what happened. This time, nobody got away. The human commander, Captain Maya Torres, stood on the bridge of her ship watching the pirate vessels being processed. Her ship, the Defiant Truth, was humanity's newest design. It existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that most species could not even perceive. "Send word to Hidden Valley," Maya told her communications officer. "Tell Dr. Reed that the secret is going to come out soon. The Dominion will notice that 12 pirate ships just vanished without explanation." Maya was right. 3 days later, Commander Vex received a report that made his blood run cold. Cor the Bloody and his entire fleet had disappeared near human space. There were no distress signals, no wreckage, no survivors. 12 heavily armed warships had simply vanished. Vex looked at her spinning peacefully below his ship and felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Primitive species did not make entire fleets disappear. Something was very wrong with humanity's classification. He began reviewing 300 years of contact reports, looking for clues he had missed. Slowly, a terrifying picture emerged. Every time the Dominion offered humans advanced technology, they politely declined. Every time aliens tried to establish bases in human space, humans requested they choose different locations. Every time other species had conflicts near human territory, the problems mysteriously resolved themselves with no human involvement. Humans had not been primitive for a very long time. They had been hiding, learning, and growing stronger while pretending to be harmless. And now Vex realized that his ship was floating above the homeworld of a species that might be more dangerous than anything in Dominion records. He reached for his communication controls to send an urgent message to Dominion Command, but hesitated. What could he say? That the harmless humans might not be harmless after all? That 12 pirate ships had vanished near human space? Command would think he was paranoid or incompetent. But deep in his mind, Vex knew the truth. Humanity had been playing a game for 3 centuries, and the Dominion had no idea what the rules were. Soon, everyone would find out what humans had really been doing while the galaxy thought they were primitive. The deception was about to end, and Vex suspected that when it did, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Admiral Kane stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at the tactical display with complete disbelief. 3 hours ago, he had commanded the most powerful fleet in Dominion history. 200 warships equipped with the latest weapons and shields, carrying enough firepower to crack planets. His mission was simple: pacify the human homeworld and install a proper Dominion government. Now half his fleet was floating dead in space, and the other half was retreating as fast as their engines could carry them. The humans had not just defeated them. They had made the Dominion Navy look like children playing with toys. Kane's tactical officer, a veteran of 50 campaigns, turned to him with shaking hands. "Sir, the damage reports are impossible. The human weapons did not just penetrate our shields. They ignored them completely. Our armor plating was removed molecule by molecule. Engine cores were disconnected from reality itself." The Admiral tried to understand what had happened. His fleet had arrived at Earth expecting to face chemical rockets and nuclear missiles. Instead, human ships had appeared from nowhere, moving without any visible propulsion systems. They flowed through space like living liquid metal, changing shape as they moved. The human vessels had no obvious weapon ports, but they had torn through Dominion defenses like they were made of paper. Particle beams that should have melted hull plating simply passed through human ships without effect. Quantum torpedoes that could destroy moons had been absorbed and converted into energy that made the human ships stronger. But the most terrifying part was not the technology. It was how the humans used it. Every shot was precise. Every movement was calculated. They disabled Dominion ships without killing crews, captured weapons without destroying them, and defeated a massive fleet while taking 0 casualties themselves. Admiral Kane had fought energy beings that existed as pure thought. He had battled ancient machines left by extinct civilizations. He had seen species transcend physical reality and become gods. But he had never seen anything like humanity's impossible combination of advanced technology and tactical brilliance. His communication officer interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship. They want to speak with you directly." Kane straightened his uniform and activated the main screen. The image that appeared showed a human woman in what looked like a simple military uniform. She appeared completely normal, except for her eyes, which seemed to contain depths that Kane could not measure. "I am Captain Emery of the Earth Defense Force," the woman said calmly. "You are Admiral Kane of the Dominion 3rd Pacification Fleet. We need to talk." Kane tried to project authority, despite his situation. "You have attacked Dominion forces without provocation. This is an act of war against the greatest power in the galaxy." Emma smiled, and Kane felt his confidence crumble. "Admiral, you brought 200 warships to our homeworld with the intention of conquering us. We defended ourselves. If that constitutes an act of war in Dominion law, then we accept the classification. Your species is classified as Level 2 civilization," Kane said desperately. "You should not possess technology capable of defeating Dominion fleets. Where did you acquire these weapons?" "We built them," Emma replied simply. "Over the past 3 centuries, we have developed our own approach to advancement. We call it the third path." Kane laughed despite his fear. "There's no third path. Species either remain primitive or transcend physical existence. Those are the only options. The Ascended Ones proved this 50,000 years ago." Emma's expression became serious. "The Ascended Ones proved that their path worked for them. They never proved it was the only path. Humanity chose differently." On the screen behind Emma, Kane could see human technicians working with captured Dominion equipment. They were not copying it or trying to understand it. They were improving it, making it more efficient, combining it with human technology to create something entirely new. "This is impossible," Kane whispered. "You cannot remain physical and achieve transcendent capabilities. The universe does not work that way." Dr. James Liu appeared beside Emma on the screen. Kane recognized him from intelligence reports as one of humanity's leading scientists. "Admiral, your understanding of the universe is limited by false assumptions. You believe consciousness and matter are separate things that cannot be fully integrated. We have proven that assumption wrong." James gestured to a holographic display that showed human technology operating on principles Kane had never seen before. Other species choose between remaining biological and limited or abandoning biology entirely. We chose to enhance biology without abandoning it. We became more than human while staying human. Kane watched the display with growing horror. Human technology did not just use advanced physics. It bent the rules of reality while working within them. Their ships existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but remained fully functional in normal space. Their weapons could edit matter at the quantum level while respecting conservation of energy. Their minds had been enhanced to think faster than computers while retaining human creativity and intuition. "You are claiming to have found a middle ground between primitive and transcendent," Kane said slowly. "That is philosophically impossible." Emma leaned forward. "Admiral, we are going to release your surviving crews and ships. When you return to Dominion space, you will report what you have seen here. Tell your leaders that humanity rejects the binary choice they have imposed on the galaxy. We will not remain primitive, but we will not transcend into energy beings either. We are walking a third path that your civilization never imagined." Kane felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. For his entire life, he had believed that advancement followed predictable stages. Primitive species stayed primitive. Advanced species either stagnated or became gods. There was no middle ground because the middle ground was impossible. But humanity had achieved the impossible. They had advanced beyond anything in Dominion records while remaining recognizably human. They had developed godlike technology while keeping human values and human decision-making. They had transcended their limitations without transcending their nature. The implications were staggering. If humanity could walk a third path, then every assumption the Dominion had made about galactic civilization was wrong. The carefully maintained order that kept primitive species primitive and advanced species transcendent was based on false premises. "This information will cause chaos throughout Dominion space," Kane said quietly. "Species that have accepted their primitive status for millennia will demand to know why they were not offered humanity's choice." Emma nodded. "That is exactly what we hope will happen. The galaxy has been locked in an artificial system for too long. Species have been forced to choose between remaining limited or abandoning their essential nature. We are offering proof that other choices exist." Kane's ships began moving away from Earth, their crews confused and demoralized. Human vessels escorted them to the edge of the solar system, moving with impossible grace and power. The Dominion fleet that had arrived to conquer Earth was leaving as messengers for a revolution they did not want to spread. Within days of Kane's return to Dominion space, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Species that had been classified as permanently primitive were suddenly demanding access to advanced technology. Worlds that had accepted Dominion rule for centuries were questioning why they had been denied the chance to advance on their own terms. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, the native Kalari people had worked in Dominion factories for 800 years. They had been told that their biology made them unsuitable for advancement, that they should be grateful for the simple work the Dominion provided. But news of humanity's third path changed everything. The Kalari workers went on strike, demanding the right to develop their own technology. When Dominion forces tried to suppress the uprising, they found that the Kalari had somehow acquired weapons that should not exist. Primitive beings were fighting with energy weapons that matched Dominion military equipment. Similar revolts erupted on 17 different worlds. Species that had been classified as hopeless primitives were suddenly demonstrating capabilities that challenged Dominion assumptions. The binary system that had maintained galactic order for millennia was cracking under pressure from beings who refused to accept limited choices. Emperor Krell of the Central Throne received hourly reports of chaos spreading throughout his empire. His advisors could not explain how primitive species were suddenly acquiring advanced technology. The intelligence services could not identify who was supplying weapons to the rebels. Find out how the humans are doing this, Krell commanded his military leaders. They cannot be manufacturing enough advanced technology to supply rebellions across the galaxy. They must have allies we do not know about. But the Emperor was wrong. Humanity was not supplying the rebellions directly. They had done something far more dangerous. They had proven that the third path was possible, and that proof was inspiring species across the galaxy to find their own versions of it. Dr. Emma Reed, now promoted to Director of Human External Relations, stood in the rebuilt Hidden Valley facility, watching reports from across the galaxy. The secret laboratory had grown into a massive complex that coordinated humanity's new role as guides for other species, seeking their own third paths. The Dominion is trying to suppress information about our victory, her assistant reported. But the news is spreading faster than they can control it. Every species that hears about the third path wants to know how to find their own version. Emma smiled as she watched intelligence reports showing Dominion forces struggling to maintain control of their empire. The galaxy was waking up to possibilities that had been hidden for 50,000 years, and there was no way to put that awakening back to sleep. Humanity had not just chosen a different path for themselves. They had proven that the entire foundation of galactic civilization was built on false assumptions. The age of binary choices was ending, and the age of infinite possibilities was about to begin. The revolution had started not with weapons or armies, but with a simple idea that species did not have to choose between remaining limited or abandoning their essential nature. They could enhance what they were instead of becoming something else entirely. And across the galaxy, billions of beings were beginning to believe that they too could walk their own impossible middle path. From dimensions beyond normal space and time, the Ascended Ones watched the chaos spreading through physical reality with growing alarm. They existed as pure consciousness, having abandoned their material bodies 50,000 years ago to become beings of infinite thought and energy. For millennia, they had maintained perfect order in the galaxy by ensuring that only two paths existed for any species: remain forever primitive, or follow their example and transcend flesh entirely. Entity 7, who was once mortal, focused its vast awareness on the growing disturbance. Through sensors that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, it observed the impossible sight of humans combining transcendent capabilities with physical existence. This should not be possible. The laws of reality itself dictated that consciousness must eventually choose between limitation and transcendence. 7 communicated with its fellow Ascended through direct thought transfer. The humans are disrupting the cosmic order. Their existence proves that our fundamental assumptions may be incorrect. Entity 12 Beyond names responded with concepts that would have driven physical minds insane. This is temporary chaos. All species eventually realize that physical existence is merely a stepping stone to true enlightenment. The humans will accept transcendence when they understand its necessity. But 7 was not convinced. It had been monitoring human development for 3 centuries, expecting them to either stagnate as primitives or request ascension like every other advanced species. Instead, the humans had done something unprecedented. They had enhanced their physical existence to near-transcendent levels while stubbornly remaining human. The Ascended Ones had created the binary system for good reasons. Physical existence was limited by matter, energy, and time. Consciousness trapped in biological forms could never achieve true understanding of the universe. Transcendence freed the mind from these constraints, allowing beings to perceive reality as it truly was. But humanity seemed to be proving that physical existence could be enhanced rather than abandoned. Their technology operated on principles that transcended normal physics while remaining anchored in material reality. Their enhanced minds could process information faster than most artificial intelligences while retaining human creativity and emotion. 7 decided to take direct action. For the first time in 3,000 years, it began the process of partial manifestation in physical space. The effort required enormous energy, as its consciousness had to compress itself back into forms that could interact with matter. Above Earth, Space began to shimmer and bend. Reality twisted as something vast and incomprehensible forced itself into three-dimensional existence. Human sensors detected the disturbance immediately, and alarms began sounding throughout the solar system. Dr. Emma Reed stood in the command center of Lunar Station Alpha, watching displays that showed impossible readings. Something is manifesting near Earth orbit. Energy signatures are off every scale we have. Captain Maya Torres activated her ship's enhanced sensors, trying to understand what was approaching Earth. The readings made no sense. Whatever was manifesting existed in normal space and hyperspace simultaneously, with consciousness patterns that seemed to stretch across multiple galaxies. Seven completed its manifestation as a being of pure light and energy, vast enough to dwarf Earth's moon. Its voice resonated through every communication system on the planet, and in human minds directly. Humans of Earth, I am Seven who was once mortal, of the Ascended Ones. We must speak. Emma felt the weight of cosmic attention pressing down on her thoughts. The being radiating power in orbit above Earth was older than human civilization and more powerful than anything in Dominion records. But she had faced impossible odds before, and humanity had survived by refusing to be intimidated. We hear you. Seven who was once mortal. Emma replied through quantum communication arrays. What do the Ascended Ones want with humanity? Seven's response came as direct thought impression rather than words. Your species has chosen a path that threatens the stability of reality itself. You enhance physical existence while refusing transcendence. This creates paradoxes that could unravel the cosmic order we have maintained for 50 millennia. Emma felt the pressure of Seven's vast intelligence trying to overwhelm her mind, but human neural enhancements held firm. We have not threatened anyone. We chose our own path of development. The galaxy is large enough for many different approaches to advancement. You do not understand, Seven projected with frustration that shook nearby moons. Physical existence is a temporary stage. All consciousness must eventually transcend matter to achieve true understanding. Your refusal to follow this path creates dangerous precedents. Dr. James Liu joined the communication from his laboratory on Mars. His voice was calm despite addressing a cosmic entity. Seven who was once mortal. Your assumption that transcendence is necessary may be incorrect. We have achieved understanding equal to transcendent beings while remaining anchored in physical reality. Seven's energy patterns fluctuated with something that might have been surprise. This is impossible. Consciousness bound by matter cannot achieve infinite understanding. Physics itself prevents such development. Physics prevents it only if you accept current limitations as permanent. James replied, We have learned to work with physical laws rather than abandoning them. Our consciousness is enhanced by our connection to matter, not limited by it. Seven focuses attention on human technology, analyzing impossible devices that allowed mere biological beings to match transcendent capabilities. What it discovered shook its fundamental understanding of reality. Human technology did not break physical laws. Instead, it found gaps and loopholes in those laws, exploiting quantum effects and dimensional interactions that even the Ascended Ones had not considered. Their consciousness was not trapped in biological brains, but distributed through quantum networks that existed partially in hyperspace, while remaining connected to physical bodies. Your approach should not work, Seven admitted, its vast mind struggling with concepts that challenge 50,000 years of assumptions. Consciousness cannot be both finite and infinite, both limited and transcendent. Emma smiled despite the cosmic pressure surrounding her thoughts. Seven who was once mortal. You are thinking in binary terms. Reality is not limited to either or choices. We have found a both in solution. Seven began to understand the true threat that humanity represented. The Ascended Ones had built their entire philosophy on the necessity of choosing between physical limitation and transcendent freedom. If humanity proved that choice unnecessary, then everything the Ascended Ones believed about existence was wrong. More disturbing was the effect humanity was having on other species. Across the galaxy, beings who had accepted their primitive status for millennia were suddenly questioning why transcendence was their only option for advancement. Some were even refusing offers of ascension, choosing instead to pursue their own versions of humanity's third path. Seven made what it considered a generous offer. Humanity, We will grant your entire species immediate transcendence. You will join us in a realm of pure thought, free from the limitations of matter and time. This is the ultimate gift we can provide. The response came not just from Emma, but from billions of human voices speaking in unison through quantum networks. Thank you for the offer, Seven, who was once mortal, but we decline. We are not interested in abandoning our humanity to become something else. Seven recoiled as if struck by physical force. In 50,000 years of existence, no species had ever refused the gift of transcendence. The concept was so alien that Seven's vast consciousness struggled to process it. You choose to remain limited when you could become infinite, Seven said with incomprehension that rippled through nearby star systems. Why would any conscious being make such a choice? Dr. Reed's response was broadcast across all dimensions, carrying to every ascended one in existence. Because we believe that consciousness without physical anchor becomes sterile. Matter without consciousness becomes dead. Only the marriage of both creates true growth and understanding. The words hit the ascended ones like a cosmic earthquake. For the first time in millennia, they felt doubt about their chosen path. Had they gained infinite knowledge, but lost something essential when they abandoned their physical forms? Had their transcendence been advancement or limitation disguised as freedom? Seven began to withdraw from physical manifestation, its energy patterns chaotic with confusion. This requires consideration by the full council of Ascended. Your philosophy challenges principles we have held sacred for eons. As Seven disappeared back into higher dimensions, its final message carried undertones of fear that had not been heard from the Ascended Ones in 50,000 years. The cosmic order is failing. Species across the galaxy are refusing the binary choice. They demand third options that should not exist. Emma watched the energy disturbance fade from Earth's orbit and felt a moment of profound satisfaction. Humanity had just faced down cosmic gods and emerged victorious not through superior firepower, but through superior philosophy. But the victory came with a price. Deep in the galaxy's dark regions, ancient civilizations that had hidden for millennia began to stir. They had rejected both primitiveness and transcendence long ago, thought extinct by the Dominion and forgotten by the Ascended Ones. Now, they sensed that someone had finally proven the third path possible. Professor Alan Stone published his findings in a document that would become the most important philosophical work in galactic history. The Third Path Manifesto outlined humanity's deliberate choice to remain physically embodied while pushing the boundaries of what physical existence could achieve. The manifesto spread through quantum networks faster than light itself, translated into thousands of languages, and distributed to every world with advanced communication systems. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly found themselves questioning fundamental assumptions about the nature of consciousness and reality. On worlds throughout the galaxy, beings read Stone's words and felt something they had not experienced in millennia. Hoped that they could become more than they were without abandoning what they were. The Ascended Ones retreated to their highest dimensional realm, engaging in debates that shook the foundations of reality itself. For the first time since their transcendence, they faced the possibility that they had chosen wrongly, that their abandonment of physical existence had been a mistake rather than an advancement. And in the spaces between dimensions, ancient things that had been sleeping for eons began to wake, drawn by the scent of change and the promise that the age of binary choices was finally ending. The galaxy split into 3 warring factions within 6 months of humanity's confrontation with the Ascended Ones. The old order was crumbling as species across countless worlds faced a choice that should not have existed. Remain primitive under Dominion rule, accept transcendence with the Ascended Ones, or join humanity's Third Path coalition and forge their own impossible middle ground. Emperor Krell stood in his throne room on the Central World, watching holographic displays that showed his empire dissolving before his eyes. Rebellion fleets attacked Dominion forces using technology that should not exist. Primitive worlds were somehow manufacturing weapons that matched the best Dominion equipment. Species that served the Empire for millennia were declaring independence and demanding the right to choose their own paths of development. How many systems have we lost this week? Krell asked his military advisor with barely controlled rage. General Tor checked his data pad with shaking hands. 47 systems have declared independence, Your Majesty. 31 more are in open rebellion. Our forces are stretched beyond breaking point trying to maintain control. Krell slammed his fist against the armrest of his throne. For 10,000 years, the Dominion had maintained order by keeping primitive species primitive and directing advanced species toward transcendence. The system had worked perfectly until humanity proved that other choices were possible. Where are the rebels getting their weapons? Krell demanded. Primitive species cannot develop advanced technology overnight. Intelligence reports suggest they are not receiving weapons, Your Majesty, Tor replied nervously. They appear to be developing their own versions of advanced technology using principles we do not understand. Meanwhile, in dimensions beyond normal space, the Ascended Ones were facing their own crisis. Entity 7, who was once mortal, manifested before the Grand Council, its energy patterns chaotic with confusion and fear. The third path philosophy is spreading faster than we can contain it. 7 reported to the assembled transcendent beings. Species are refusing our offers of ascension. They claim they want to enhance their physical existence rather than abandon it. Entity Prime Among Equals, oldest of the Ascended Ones, radiated displeasure that warped local space-time. This is unacceptable. The cosmic order depends on the binary choice between limitation and transcendence. If beings refuse to transcend, the universe will stagnate in primitive chaos. But 7 had been studying human philosophy and found disturbing implications in their approach. Prime Among Equals, what if our assumption about transcendence was incorrect? What if abandoning physical existence actually limited our understanding rather than expanding it? The suggestion caused such shock among the Ascended Ones that several nearby star systems experienced gravitational fluctuations. For 50,000 years, they had believed that transcendence was the ultimate goal of all consciousness. The possibility that they had chosen wrongly was almost incomprehensible. Prime Among Equals made a decision that would change the nature of the conflict. We will manifest physically and enforce transcendence directly. Species will be given the choice to ascend willingly or be forced to transcend for their own benefit. On Earth, Captain Maya Torres stood on the bridge of her newest command, the Starship Harmony of Contradictions. The vessel represented the peak of human third-path technology, existing simultaneously in normal space and 17 other dimensions, while remaining fully functional in all of them. Maya's crew was a perfect example of humanity's approach to enhancement. They had augmented their bodies with technology that made them faster, stronger, and smarter than baseline humans, but they remained recognizably human in thought and feeling. Their minds were connected to quantum networks that allowed them to process information at superhuman speeds while retaining human creativity and intuition. Captain, we are receiving distress calls from the Kalari homeworld, her communications officer reported. Dominion forces are attempting to suppress their independence movement with orbital bombardment. Maya nodded grimly. The Kalari had been among the first species to embrace the third path after learning about humanity's approach. They had enhanced their natural technological aptitude to create devices that rivaled anything in Dominion arsenals, but they were still learning to defend themselves against established powers. Set course for Kalari space. Maya ordered maximum dimensional fold speed. The harmony of contradictions disappeared from normal space and reappeared in the Kalari system minutes later, having traveled 300 light-years by folding space-time around itself. Maya found a battle in progress between Dominion warships and what appeared to be a ragtag collection of converted civilian vessels. But appearances were deceiving. The Kalari ships moved with precision that matched Maya's own vessel, using weapons that bent local physics to achieve impossible effects. They were losing only because they were outnumbered 10-1 by Dominion forces. Maya opened communication channels to both fleets. This is Captain Torres of the Third Path Coalition. Dominion forces, you're ordered to withdraw from Kalari space immediately. Admiral Rex of the Dominion 4 fleet laughed at the transmission. One human ship against my entire fleet? You have impressive courage, but poor judgment, Captain. Maya smiled as her tactical displays showed Kalari ships moving into new formations around her vessel. Admiral, you are not facing one ship. You are facing the combined forces of the Third Path Coalition. Space around the Kalari homeworld suddenly filled with vessels that appeared from nowhere. Ships from dozens of species that had embraced humanity's philosophy materialized using dimensional folding technology, surrounding the Dominion fleet. But the strangest sight was not the ships themselves, but their crews. Each species had found their own version of the third path, enhancing their natural abilities while remaining true to their essential nature. The insectoid Threx had developed hive mind technology that allowed perfect coordination while preserving individual consciousness. The gaseous nebulans had learned to manipulate matter at the molecular level while maintaining their energy-based existence. Admiral Rex stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. This is impossible. These species were classified as permanently primitive. They cannot possess technology equal to Dominion standards. Maya's response was broadcast on all frequencies. Admiral, your classifications were based on false assumptions. Every species has a potential for advancement if they are allowed to choose their own path. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. It was not fought with traditional weapons, but with competing philosophies made manifest through technology. Dominion forces used brute force approaches that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia. Coalition ships responded with precision techniques that worked with natural laws rather than overwhelming them. Dominion particle beams were deflected by coalition ships that had learned to bend space-time around themselves. Quantum torpedoes were absorbed and converted into energy that powered coalition weapons. Every Dominion advantage was neutralized by coalition technology that should not have existed. But the most shocking moment came when space itself began to warp and twist as the Ascended Ones manifested directly into the battle. Beings of pure energy and thought appeared around the Kalari homeworld, their presence so overwhelming that several Dominion ships simply shut down from sensory overload. Prime Among Equals spoke directly into the minds of every conscious being in the system. This conflict ends now. All physical beings will accept transcendence immediately, or we will force the process of good of the universe. Maya felt the overwhelming pressure of cosmic consciousness, trying to tear her awareness away from her physical body. Around her, coalition crews struggled against transcendent forces that sought to convert them into pure energy beings. But humanity's enhancements held firm. Their quantum-distributed consciousness could not be easily separated from their physical forms because it existed in both states simultaneously. Maya spoke for all coalition forces when she replied to the Ascended Ones. Prime Among Equals, we reject your offer of forced transcendence. We choose to remain what we are while becoming more than we were. The response from the Ascended Ones was a wave of force that should have converted every physical being in the system into pure energy. Instead, coalition ships absorbed the transcendent energy and used it to enhance their own capabilities. Humans and their allies had learned to bridge the gap between physical and transcendent existence without abandoning either state. Dr. Emma Reed, now commanding the Coalition's Philosophical Defense Corps, from a mobile command center that existed in 12 dimensions simultaneously, coordinated the unprecedented battle. Her forces were fighting not just for military victory, but for the right of consciousness to choose its own path of development. All coalition forces, remember that we are not fighting against transcendence or primitiveness. Emma broadcasts across quantum networks. We are fighting for the right of every species to find their own balance between matter and energy, between limitation and infinity. The battle raged across multiple planes of existence for 3 days. Dominion forces found themselves caught between coalition ships that defied conventional tactics and Ascended Ones who were trying to forcibly transcend entire fleets. Some Dominion crews chose to join the coalition rather than face forced transcendence. Others accepted ascension to escape the chaos of physical warfare. Admiral Rex made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his existence. Rather than face defeat or transcendence, he activated his fleet's self-destruct systems, choosing oblivion over loss of control. The explosion of 30 Dominion warships created a temporary rift in space-time that allowed something ancient and terrible to emerge from the spaces between dimensions. Entities that had been sleeping for millions of years awakened to the scent of cosmic change, drawn by the collapse of the binary system that had kept them hidden. Maya watched her sensors as things that defied classification began manifesting throughout the galaxy. Ancient civilizations that had rejected both primitiveness and transcendence eons ago were stirring in the dark corners of reality, ready to reclaim their place in a universe that had forgotten their existence. The war for reality had begun in earnest, and its outcome would determine whether consciousness would be free to choose its own path or remain trapped forever in false binary choices imposed by those who claim to know the one true way to advancement. 5 years after the first impossible human victory over the Dominion fleet, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The rigid hierarchy that had forced species to choose between primitive limitation and transcendent abandonment lay in ruins, replaced by a tapestry of infinite possibilities that grew more complex with each passing day. Captain Maya Torres stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, a massive structure that existed simultaneously in normal space and 17 other dimensions. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see vessels from hundreds of species working together on projects that would have been considered impossible just years before. A Kalari research ship was docked beside an Ascended One who had chosen partial re-embodiment, their combined efforts creating hybrid technology that merged transcendent wisdom with physical innovation. Nearby, former Dominion warships worked alongside Coalition vessels to explore dimensional rifts that led to realities where the laws of physics operated under completely different principles. Maya smiled as she watched a group of human children playing with young beings from a dozen different species. The children wore simple enhancement devices that allowed them to breathe in the station's mixed atmosphere and communicate through universal translation fields, but they remained recognizably human despite their technological augmentations. "Captain Torres," came a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Dr. Emma Reed approaching. Her appearance changed by 5 years of leading humanity's expansion into cosmic significance. Emma now existed partially in higher dimensions, her consciousness distributed across quantum networks that span half the galaxy, but her essential humanity remained unchanged. "Director Reed," Maya replied with genuine warmth. "How are the negotiations proceeding with the Ancient Ones?" Emma's expression grew thoughtful as she joined Maya at the observation window. "Better than expected. The Watchers of the Void have agreed to share their dimensional manipulation techniques in exchange for access to our integration philosophy. The Forgotten Builders are more difficult, but they seem fascinated by our ability to enhance consciousness without abandoning physical existence." The Ancient Ones had emerged from their hiding places throughout the galaxy once the binary system began collapsing. Species that had rejected both primitiveness and transcendence millions of years ago had retreated to the spaces between dimensions, waiting for the cosmic order to change. Humanity's third path had finally given them reason to return. Maya watched as a ship approached the station that defied every principle of known engineering. The vessel appeared to be constructed from crystallized time itself, its hull shifting between past and future states while remaining stable in the present. It belonged to the Eternal Wanderers, an ancient race that had learned to exist in multiple temporal states simultaneously. "The Dominion remnants are requesting another meeting," Emma reported. "Emperor Krell wants to discuss terms for joining the Third Path Coalition." Maya felt a mixture of satisfaction and pity. The once mighty Galactic Dominion had fragmented into dozens of smaller governments as member species chose their own paths of development. Some had joined the coalition willingly. Others had sought transcendence with the Ascended Ones, and a few had allied with the Ancient Ones to explore realities beyond normal understanding. Emperor Krell himself had become a tragic figure, clinging to the remnants of his empire, while the universe evolved beyond his comprehension. His latest proposal involved surrendering Dominion authority in exchange for guidance on how his own species might find their version of the third path. "What do you think we should tell him?" Maya asked. Emma considered the question carefully. "The same thing we tell every species that approaches us. We cannot give them our path because our path only works for humans. But we can help them discover their own way to balance enhancement with authenticity." This had become humanity's primary role in the new galactic order. They were not conquerors or rulers, but guides who helped other species understand that the false choice between limitation and transcendence could be rejected. Each species had to find their own unique approach to advancement, one that enhanced their nature rather than replacing it. The Threks had developed collective consciousness networks that preserved individual identity while allowing perfect coordination. The gaseous Nebulans had learned to manipulate matter and energy while maintaining their ethereal existence. The crystalline Zephyrite had created technology that grew like living organisms while remaining perfectly precise and reliable. Even more remarkable were the hybrid civilizations that had emerged from cooperation between different species. The Kalari human joint colonies combined human innovation with Kalari technical precision to create marvels that neither species could have achieved alone. Former Dominion worlds worked with Ascended Ones to develop partially transcendent societies that bridge physical and energy-based existence. Dr. James Liu materialized beside them through quantum teleportation, his consciousness existing simultaneously in laboratories across 12 star systems. The latest reports from the Exploration Corps are fascinating. He announced with excitement that had remained unchanged despite his distributed existence. We have made contact with 17 new ancient species in the past month alone. Maya shook her head in amazement. Before humanity's revolution, the galaxy had seemed to contain only a few dozen spacefaring civilizations. Now they were discovering that thousands of species have been hiding in dimensional pockets, alternate realities, and temporal loops, all waiting for the binary system to collapse so they could safely emerge. Any hostile contacts? Emma asked with a caution that came from years of dealing with cosmic-scale conflicts. James smiled. Quite the opposite. Most of the Ancient Ones are fascinated by our approach. Several have requested permission to establish embassies on Earth so they can study human culture directly through the observation window. Maya could see one of the most remarkable sights in the new galaxy, an Ascended One who had chosen to partially re-embody working alongside human engineers on a project that would have been impossible for either to complete alone. The transcendent being provided knowledge that spanned eons while the humans contributed creativity and intuition that pure energy beings had lost when they abandoned physical existence. Entity 7, who was once mortal, had been among the first Ascended Ones to accept that transcendence might not be the ultimate goal of consciousness. It had chosen to partially return to physical existence, creating a hybrid form that could experience both transcendent awareness and material sensation. The integration process is more complex than we anticipated. 7 communicated through quantum resonance that human neural enhancements could interpret. We had forgotten what it was like to feel texture, to experience uncertainty, to create something entirely new rather than simply understanding what already existed. Maya found it ironic that beings who had achieved cosmic consciousness were learning from humans about the value of limitation and uncertainty. Transcendence had given the Ascended Ones infinite knowledge, but it cost them the ability to experience surprise, discovery, and growth. Emma received a priority transmission that made her smile with genuine joy. The Earth Council has approved the cultural exchange program. We are officially inviting representatives from every known species to establish permanent communities on Earth so they can study our approach firsthand. This was perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the willingness to share their philosophy openly while respecting each species' right to find their own interpretation of it. Earth was becoming a meeting place where beings from across the spectrum of existence could learn from each other without being forced to abandon their essential nature. Maya watched as a transport arrived carrying delegates from the newest coalition members. The Void Dancers had learned to exist in the spaces between dimensions while maintaining physical anchor points. The Time Weavers had developed technology that allowed them to experience multiple temporal states simultaneously. The Dream Architects had discovered how to make thoughts temporarily physical while keeping their consciousness anchored in mental reality. Each species had found their own impossible middle path, proving that humanity's third path was not a single route, but a principle that could be applied in infinite ways. The galaxy was discovering that consciousness and reality were far more flexible than anyone had imagined. There is something else, Emma said quietly. We have received a message from beyond the galaxy itself. Other galactic clusters have detected the changes here and are sending delegations to learn about the third path philosophy. Maya felt a moment of vertigo as she contemplated the implications. If humanity's revolution was spreading beyond their own galaxy, then the entire universe might be on the verge of transformation. The binary choices that had limited consciousness for millions of years were being rejected on a cosmic scale. Dr. Reed walked to her personal workspace, a quantum field that existed in the station's command center and simultaneously in laboratories across human space. She activated displays that showed the current state of galactic civilization, and the sight took Maya's breath away. Thousands of star systems were now connected by quantum networks that allowed instant communication across any distance. Species that had been enemies for millennia were working together on projects that pushed the boundaries of what reality could become. Ancient beings were sharing knowledge that had been hidden for eons while learning new approaches to existence from younger civilizations. In her final personal log, Maya dictated her thoughts about humanity's accidental revolution. We never intended to change the galaxy. We just refused to accept that we had to choose between remaining limited or abandoning our humanity. But that simple refusal has transformed everything. She looked out at Unity Station's docking bays, where ships from across the galaxy brought beings seeking their own versions of the third path. Former enemies worked side by side. Transcendent beings learned to appreciate physical sensation again, and ancient species emerged from hiding to share wisdom that predated current civilization. The age of binary choices was over. The age of infinite possibilities had begun, and at its heart was a simple principle that humanity had stumbled upon through stubborn refusal to accept false limitations. Consciousness could grow without abandoning its essential nature. Reality could be enhanced without being replaced. And the universe was vast enough to contain every possible path of development. Maya smiled as she watched Earth's sun rise over the station's main habitat ring, illuminating beings from hundreds of species working together to build a future that none of them could have imagined alone. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy or transcended into godhood. They had done something far more remarkable. They had proven that every conscious being had the right to choose their own path through the infinite possibilities of existence. And across the universe, other galaxies were beginning to listen.